Ladies and gentlemen, organizational members, the Freedman and Draimin families, and special guests, welcome to this community dedication where it's my privilege to preside over the formal dedication of our Assembly Building and Assembly Hall at Toronto Hebrew Memorial Park's Pardes Shalom Cemetery. I'm Louis Greenbaum, President of Toronto Hebrew Memorial Parks, and I'm speaking to you from the reconstructed Assembly Building at the Pardes Shalom Cemetery. I'd like to start off our program by welcoming Warren Kimmel, Chair of the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto, and who has previously served as a board member of Toronto Hebrew Memorial Parks, to extend greetings.
As Chair of the Board and on behalf of UJA Federation of Greater Toronto, it's my honor to participate and pay tribute to Sid Friedman and Bill Draimin of blessed memory. Today's dual dedication at Pardes Shalom is beyond deserving. Though realizing his vision in 1970 by purchasing the land that would become Pardes Shalom Cemetery and from which Pardes Chaim was born, Sid created cemeteries which provide a growing majority of burials for the GTA's Jewish community. It's fitting that Bill is also being honored as he stepped in to succeed Sid in leading THMP for more than a quarter century. Neither Sid nor Bill spent time of their resources to gain any thanks. They were undoubtedly motivated by the purest of Jewish values, and they turned these values into action through countless mitzvot. Their action reflects so much of what UJA Federation is committed to and what makes our community special. Among these many values, perhaps the one that hits home the most for UJA is the value of Jewish unity, in Hebrew, achdut. Toronto Hebrew Memorial Parks is a trust operating in the interests of UJA Federation, meaning on behalf of the community. THMP serves the entire spectrum of Jewish Toronto, regardless of the stream of Judaism, providing the most professional and affordable burials possible, open to all. It is also a leader in the cemetery sector and continues to show that leadership today in very different times. The work of THMP reflects both Sid and Bill. This dedication is long overdue and so meaningful because it will help ensure that our community always remembers what Sid has bestowed and led, and Bill ensured with his expert and tireless leadership, a legacy for generations. Sid, the deepest of gratitude to you and your family, and kol kavod on all you've done and on the occasion of this dedication. And to the Draimin family, we are indebted to Bill, as the community always will be.
Thank you, Warren. I'd now like to call upon Susan Brown, a member of our board and chair of the Communications Committee, to speak about a special art installation we had commissioned for this assembly building, and to introduce the artists to explain their work and how it fits into the mission of THMP and this building.
I'd like to introduce our special art installation project for the William C. and Judy Draimin Assembly Hall at Pardes Shalom. The context for this project is our Sidney and Dawn Freedman Memorial Center, where bereaved families and others who come to remember their loved ones are enveloped in a comforting and healing space. The architecture of the building recalls art historical details of 20th century Bauhaus modernist design and contains elements of Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie-style residential structures. Accordingly, the William C. and Judy Draimin Assembly Hall features natural materials like stone and wood, which bring nature into its architectural interior. Carefully placed windows also reveal beautiful vignettes of the surrounding treed landscape. The purpose of this structure is to reflect and support the community for which it was built, both in tradition and feeling. Thus, an adjunct Kohanim room was built to accommodate and honor halachic practice. In addition, the building houses administrative offices, meeting rooms, and workspace, and it provides physical shelter from the outdoors. Beyond these functions, the vision for the hall includes a sanctuary and gathering space sensitively endowed with Jewish character, and enhanced with spiritually warm qualities. We searched for an original and artful enhancement to include in the space, an art installation that would reflect the Jewish identity and purpose of the hall and ensure a spiritual contemplative environment. We found it in Flight, a sculptural installation created for us by distinguished artists Tema Gentles and William Roddy. Gentles and Roddy combined forces to design and produce a three-dimensional work that will offer visitors a spiritually uplifting atmosphere. Gentles and Roddy are Toronto-based. Gentles is an artist and educator. She created the Torah Stitch by Stitch, a project of profound engagement, inclusive of over 1,400 people of many faiths and cultural backgrounds who joined hearts and hands to stitch the holy texts. The first half of the project was exhibited at the Textile Museum of Canada in 2019. Her background, artistic philosophy, and past commissioned work matched with our vision for the hall, as did the artistic vision of William Roddy, a metal artist and sculptor whose work is infused with detail and form, allowing it to be more than just functional. While rooted in the figure, Roddy's work also strays toward narrative and explores the relationship between geometry and nature. His creative collaboration with Gentles developed a unique and meaningful interior treatment for our sacred space at Party Shalom, responding exquisitely to the character and function of the hall. I will now turn it over to the artists to expand on their work and give us some insight into the meaning and creative process behind Flight.
We're pleased to take you on the journey through the development of the concept, the fabrication, and the installation of Flight.
This is a plan view of the assembly hall, and it also shows exactly where our project was going to occur. What we found exciting is that it's right across from the entranceway, so it shows quite well, and the backlit window was just magnificent, looking out into Mother Nature.
Our first site visit was exactly 2 years ago with an unusually large early snowfall, but that added a sense of quiet and mystery to the background as William and I played with our own responses to the interior space and how to integrate it with the outdoors.
This basically nature shot gives you an idea of what Tim and I could see when we were in the assembly hall. We wanted something gentle, something spiritual, and the concept of silhouettes of birds flying just fit perfectly.
The Hebrew thematic element was a phrase from El Maleh Rachamim, which is said at all memorial services and hopes for the spirits of the departed to find peace embraced by God's nurturing spirit.
This is our concept drawing, and it shows you how we designed the steel to just float above the curved wall, and also shows the modules, the screens that we wanted hanging, and just to allow the light to come through, for our colors to show, and for our silhouettes to just show subtly. And it also has the grid hanging up that we attached to the ceiling.
A close-up of the structural elements. The grid is painted the same color as the ceiling, so it disappears. And we used stainless steel fine wire to suspend, so everything feels and looks as if it's floating in the space.
This shows you our color palette. We chose Paul Clay's painting We wanted natural colors expressing Mother Nature, and we spent a great deal of effort to find the right spray paints that would do the job.
William fabricated most of the screens, and Artiste Moi painted them with the colors that you had seen in the previous slide. I'm wearing a respirator mask as protection, not against COVID, but against the airborne particles.
This shows you the templates, the patterns we cut out of the bird silhouettes. And to the right of that shows you some of the screens that Tim had painted, and we overlaid the silhouette of the birds on top of that.
William and his friend Brian installed the valance hovering just above the feature wall. You can see on the right that it's quite handsome on its own, and Howard paid us a compliment by relaying a message from one of the people who had seen it, who said, it looks as if it's always been there. Those of us who work on commission design love to hear that kind of compliment.
This shows the complicated scaffolding we required to run up and down. So Tema had me running up and down the scaffolding for 2 days solid, helping to install installing the screens in exactly a particular order and a particular spot, as you can see on the right-hand side.
We knew from the get-go that the backlighting from the window was going to be very strong, as you can see from the piece reflected on the side wall, and that some form of front lighting would be needed to show the colors and the birds. And so we hired Shalom Dolgoy, who's a veteran lighting designer for theater and museums and displays. And he came literally with a carload of samples and equipment to play out several scenarios of lighting. Susan was there for that meeting, and after we went through the various options, we unanimously agreed on a particular two-step solution. Step one is to use a film or gel over the middle rank of windows that would help to filter the strong light. And the second part was to install lighting on a vertical rails, one on each side, that would hold up to 6 lighting heads each and be aimed at various parts of the installation. We were really pleased with what Shalom showed us, and that we were able to observe as the sun moved across the landscape. It not only revealed the installation itself, but also the shadows of each piece against the other and against the valance, and it was really quite magical.
We wanted to give special thanks to Susan Brown, Jim Emery, and of course the board. Thank you.
And shameless PS, if you would like to know more about our work, please visit our websites. All the best. Thank you.
We now come to the highlight of our program, and I get to speak about my friend, Sid Freedman. Today we honor a man who, with the support of his family, was able to act upon a vision to create a Jewish cemetery to serve the community's needs into the future. It was to be a cemetery to serve member organizations, be they synagogues, Landsmannschaft societies, benevolent societies, and unaffiliated community sections, regardless of religious denomination or affiliation. Sid bought the 83 acres of land where we are now situated for what became part of Shalom Cemetery where this assembly building now stands. He single-handedly oversaw the development of Pardes Shalom, which, with its wonderful natural features and topography, has become one of the most beautiful cemeteries in North America. He entered into an agreement with what was then the United Jewish Welfare Fund, now UJA Federation, in 1972, to gift these lands to the community, and forged a community relationship which has seen THMP come to operate and create an enterprise which is the envy of the bereavement sector in Ontario, Canada, and North America. I first met Sid when I became a UJA appointed director of THMP in 2002. And after my federation term expired, I was so committed to serving THMP, I asked my father, who was a Landsmannschaft Society representative to THMP, if I could become their society's representative so I could become an organizational member of the THMP board. Sid's vision extended beyond Pardes Shalom, and I was seconded to assist in the acquisition and development of the Pardes Chaim cemetery lands. And through that experience, working side by side, I developed a true understanding of the vision and dedication of Sid Freedman. He has committed 50 years of his life to the mission of Toronto Hebrew Memorial Parks without being asked for or receiving any recognition from the community, and who to this day continues to serve as a life member of THMP's board and a member of its executive committee, and provides his input on an ongoing basis. This day has been long in coming, and we are proud to dedicate this assembly building in honor of Sid Freedman and his family by naming it the Sidney and Don Freedman Memorial Center. At this point, it gives me great pleasure in calling upon Sid to offer some remarks.
Well, I've never spoken to an imaginary audience before. I can only imagine how my words will be received. But as the British say, I'll give it a go. I must thank Lou for that very generous, I know, heartfelt introduction. I know that on his part, it isn't simply a matter of protocol. We are longtime colleagues and good friends. Though today I'm not speaking to my audience directly, I'm sure that most of you already know who I am. But now that I'm in my 90s, it may be useful for someone to remind me of it from time to time. Now, several years back, when I announced that I was at that time an officially certified nonagenarian, one of my witty friends, in chiding me for using highfalutin words, expressed a mock surprise. A nonagenarian? How about that? A nonagenarian, really? I always thought you were Jewish. In a Polish village where I was born, it wasn't wise for Jews to comment on an old person's age. Perhaps the Malchamovis had overlooked them on his last pass through. They worried about that apparition, you know, the one that carries a heavy scythe over his shoulder with which he sweeps up all the Energizer bunnies that have stopped beating their drums. The building naming task was assigned to our son. Knowing that neither Don nor I are in the least bit superstitious, he came up with the Memorial Center wording. Memorial. Isn't that the word you use for someone who's passed on? But when I think of it, it's not a bad wording. A sort of insurance policy guaranteeing Extended years because when the Grim Reaper again makes his rounds, he might be fooled into thinking that he had already covered us. So that's not such a bad position to be in. But in truth, this building naming, or this named building rather, doesn't serve only to honor me and my family. That's because it's not only about me. It's truly in honor of the incredible community that THMP serves. It's about the community itself. In the early years of building Part of Shalom, where we now are broadcasting from, so to speak, I came here regularly at times on a daily basis during the construction of the various phases. There was absolutely nothing here in 1970, except some cows lounging on the other side of Dufferin Street where the large houses now stand, lots of trees, weeds, crabgrass. As I walked the property to consider how it might be developed, I had time to think about what a community cemetery could achieve. How could it be different? How would it function? I thought that by gathering every branch of Jewish expression and practice into one unifying structure, we would be replicating the amazing story of our people, if only in a symbolic version of its diverse 4-millennial history. In achieving that ingathering purpose, we would be bringing the continuity of our past forward to the present. That seemed to me to be a pretty noble endeavor. Well, the vision became the reality. It succeeded beyond my original expectations. In fact, it succeeded so well that we were obliged to build Pardes Chaim, which is 2.5 times larger than this Pardes Shalom. It's of a scale that on its own will serve for the next 4 or more generations. Now, almost 50 years later, looking out at our beautiful grounds, some of which I'm actually looking out on, our chapel and its building, and when over the years I've walked the extensive grounds of Pardes Chaim, I knew that creating THMP was only the physical fulfillment of an evocative adventure I had undertaken so many years ago. The more inspiring fulfillment of it is that it comprises and houses the history of tens of thousands of mothers and fathers who once celebrated their children's coming of age, their marriages, the birth of grandchildren, in some cases great-grandchildren. Their legacy has been passed on to their line, but also to us of the total community, l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. Now, because THMP is community-owned, it serves both its pragmatic and its spiritual needs. It runs a successful business enterprise on ethical principles. It yearly serves well over 1/2 and increasingly more of our diverse population. It supports community programs financially. It honors common end-of-life commandments. We've built a beautiful memorial garden at Pardes Shalom. In it, we have erected monuments on which the names of those whose burial places are unknown may be inscribed. In a symbolic way, they are redeemed, gathered into us. We reclaim them, and in doing so, they're not forgotten. What I've learned through the years of memorializing those that once were is perhaps best expressed in the Shehecheyanu prayer. It is one that most of us would recognize. We know that life is fragile, that Jews were always made aware that each day is a gift to be treasured. But they also understood that each day, however threatening or benign, provided an opportunity and a challenge. Well, what do we really say when we recite the Shehecheyanu? Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, Lord. Eloheinu melech haolam, our God, King of the universe, shehachayanu v'kimanu, who has granted us life, sustained us, v'higiyanu lazman hazeh, and enabled us to reach this occasion. We recite that prayer actually in two dimensions. The first is the very fact we are here and must be grateful to be participating in the marking of a special occasion, a special milestone. But it's not just a day that's special for me, for my family, and for the Draimin family. The second dimension it represents is how thankful we must all be that THMP continues to operate, creating an enduring legacy for the total community with each passing day. It will serve for many generations to come. It will serve so long as our people are rooted here. Now, I know that today's commemorative and celebratory events should traditionally end with the Shechayona rather than begin with it. But breaking the order of recitation and reciting it illuminates and shines its light beyond it being simply a common prayer. It carries an acknowledgement that life is uncertain and that it may well end abruptly. We can never know how many days are left to us. But what strikes me about the prayer itself lies in its specifically unstated commandment. The oblique and understated message it delivers, whether one is or is not a believer, is as simple as it is profound. So long as one lives, even if only in a shortened lifetime, one can yet serve. I can attest from my own life experience that it is in the service and in the concern for others that we come to best know ourselves. We live in an age of extraordinarily rapid change. We still confront the tensions centered in populist identity issues, as expressed in us against them thinking. Now our youngest are impacted by a historically determining relatively new me against them equation. These rapid changes have inspired alienation, loneliness, despair, and fear for the future. Each of the incoming generation must now wonder what their world will be like, of what they will have to overcome to be productive and acknowledged. We know that these impacting issues must be addressed on a personal level. Even so, we must understand that a life lived only to satisfy one's immediate needs, though isolating, may be the only alternative for many. But for those who have been fortunate enough to live at a time and in a place where the basic needs are usually, if at times not easily met, the question arises as to what one is able to do to reach out beyond the self. Nor should we measure or evaluate contributions to our social order as if we were engaged in a good works competition. We should at the least want to work towards maintaining a more civil order, one reflecting openness, decency, a heartfelt concern, and a kind word for others. Even small, enabling gestures and courtesies count. Over the years, I've thought a great deal about our history as reflected from the lives of the charismatic and gifted people whose works have built the grounding edifice of our Judaic legacy. From the very beginning, we were a nation of questioners, thinkers, storytellers, and writers. We still are. Yet beyond this storytelling, beyond biblical accounts that narrate the history of our people, the foundational message of Judaism remains that man must be bound not only in a love and concern for others, but by a set of rules rooted and maintained through a tradition inherited as a wisdom legacy from past generations. Our sages' teachings, past and present, were and still are foundational in addressing the issues we have faced from time immemorial. They remain the very ones that we must face today. Now, let's pause for a minute. Let's take a moment to consider how we have been impacted in the history of our multi-millennium long experience as a people. We are at present only twice our number of some 2,000 years ago. We were then 1/10 of the total population of the Mediterranean basin. Without the expulsions and the horrors of the past, we would today be a nation of more than 200 millions. Yet, now over 50% of the world's population, to some degree, owe their religious beliefs to the insights of a small group of Canaanite shepherds, become Hebrews, writing of their historic collective memories, later compiled to become the Torah. Now, after every Jewish cataclysmic historic event, much is said of tragic but endemic anti-Semitism, yet nothing is said of its origin. Now, I do not speak today of the reasons for the enduring antipathy to Judaism. I now speak not of specific historic tragic events, but of the broader implications of unrestrained endemic hatreds. Our European cemeteries and burial places known of, the majority of which will not be rebuilt, whether they are known of or forgotten, still send a transcendental message of who we once were. The generation before mine and my own have experienced heart-rending upheavals and uncertainties, the like of which are hard fixed in the memory. They are most painful to recount. As a 9-year-old in 1938, I heard and still remember listening to the shrieking, hydra-headed, hysterical voice of the monster in Berlin, spewing out his totally irrational, raging obfuscations, fabrications, lies, and distortions endlessly repeated. I remember the airwaves themselves trembling at the vibration of thousands of shrill voices in their complicit adoration, shouting their Sieg Heils, Hail to victory, hail to victory. I remember the tensions within the vibrating airwaves beating out the rage expressed by 20,000 Americans passionately attending a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden in New York, a city which was a major center of Jewish life. I remember those same 20,000 Americans giving the Nazi salute in unison while buying into the new vision of a vile world held captive to a fascist ideology, fertilized and nourished in the economic distress of the time. 1938 was a pivotal year. The gunpowder had been gathered and the explosion was about to be set off. In November, during what became known as Kristallnacht, synagogues were burning all over Germany and Austria. Jews were being murdered and massively arrested. German Jews who had contributed so much to the culture of their fatherland had no place that would take them, no place to seek asylum. The advent of radio, that wonderful instrument that could bring entertainment to millions, could also be used for nefarious purposes. It could and did bring unremitting hatred to the ears of hundreds of millions. It brought the steady voice of Father Coughlin, the Canadian-American Catholic priest, broadcasting out of Detroit and spewing out his anti-Semitic venom. One must wonder at the fact that today Facebook alone of the social media can reach and affect the ears of over 2 billions. One must wonder how that technology will be used. Now, can it be said that anything was really learned from living through those terrible years which seemed to challenge the future itself? At the beginning of World War II, the American poet W.H. Auden wrote a piece entitled September 1, 1939, the day that Germany invaded Poland. In it, he expressed the truism that we must live with one another in peace. We must understand that the horrors experienced in the cauldron of evil, the hatreds of the 20th century, though beaten for a time, beaten down, are still alive. They live with us. They still haunt our dreams. Auden's fear for our survival has more than doubled down in this age of atomic weaponry. and in the complexities inherent in the intensely competitive societies in which we are obliged to live. But Audin's message, restated now as it was then, is starkly clear. We will have to challenge the world's hatreds, or they will consume us. Now more than ever, more than in 1939, we must reach out, must serve others in their greater need, to expand our concern for peoples beyond our own often tribal embrace, no longer to be sucked into the witching whirlpool of consummate despair, no longer drawn into the sulphurous ash of war, the refuse of which probes, stirs, and finds its home in the dreaded dark depths of human depravity. For me, now at the trailing edge of my allotted years, the true meaning of the Shechiana prayer is not necessarily anchored in whether I have been divinely sustained in having enjoyed an extended lifespan. My extended years may simply be due to a natural attribute, my inherited family genes. Doesn't really matter. I'm grateful, whatever its energizing force, for the gift of years that has enabled me, if even in a small way, to enrich the lives of successive generations. I know that the benefit of our inherited blessings is birthed in a melange of living prayers. They are grafted from the sepia tint of a pictured past, a gift from the hands of those who built our yet imperfect social order. It can only fall to us generationally to restructure and enlarge upon that which we have received. There are none other than ourselves waiting or wanting to bear our burden. It is in that respect and in that opportunity that we are challenged by the granite stones, those very monuments to longing, to hope, and to remembrance. I don't have a special wisdom message to impart. Others may speak of the value of what I have done for the community. But more so must I speak for what it has done for me. It has given me the means to serve in the best way that I could. I'm charmed at the thought that our long departed are still with us, as though reassembled here. I thank them for their life stories, safely secreted within their remembrance stones. For even as we speak to the stones, they speak to us. If we listen carefully, we may be given to understand that they still have something to say, even at this very moment. We may want to echo an enduring line taken from the Jewish Book of Prayers. So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now part of us as we remember them. Today, I repeat the words that I spoke on the occasion of dedicating the gates of Pardes Shalom in 1991. In speaking of the departed, I said, as we remember them, may the enduring peaceful calm of our grounds remind us of how sacred and eternal is each and every life that is commemorated here. May those who mourn and remember, therefore, pass through our gates in peace. May their sorrows be softened within the tender, forgiving, and healing beauty of our grounds. For it is here that the recently departed seem to linger a while. It is here that they and we can still come to grieve, to take inspiration, to right old wrongs, to talk to the stones that mark a very special place. It is here that we touch our past, and it may be here that we should value our present and ponder upon our future. I have no words to enlarge on that message. We thank those past generations for the lessons taught, and we thank them for the lessons learned. We thank them for passing on the sweet fruits of an ancient tradition. We especially thank those that we serve and will continue to serve, so long as there's a Jewish community in Greater Toronto. In reciting the traditional Shechiana prayer, we've acknowledged and accepted the blessings of our yesterdays. In reciting that prayer, we are given to understand how much we are privileged to be able to celebrate this day and how much we are ready to respond to its challenges. On a personal note, what can I say about Lou Greenbaum beyond the fact he's truly a mensch? That word is hard to define. It's all-inclusive, expressing the qualities of an exceptional human being. Lou stepped in to take over the helm at THMP after the sudden passing of our president, Bill Draimin. Notwithstanding his already heavy load of responsibilities, he performed beyond what I myself could have done in his place. I cannot say enough about him. But I cannot leave off without a brief comment on how THMP has successfully functioned over the years. Early on, long before THMP grew beyond what it is today, our board had and has worked and responded as family. I've chaired and sat on more than a few of them. I can tell you that the board of THMP has been and is the exception. Over the years, its members have maintained and have a feeling for each other that transcends their official function beyond any others that I have experienced. I have felt their affection, and for many years they have earned my high regard for them. Our warm relationship has been one of the blessings that have showered my days. I applaud and I thank those whose steadfast loyalty and heartfelt engagement on the boards and committees have built THMP into the admired institution that it is today. I must also thank those responsible for the dedication of this building event and for the dedication of our chapel in honoring the memory of Bill Draimin, who was our acclaimed second president. You have done both our families proud.
Thank you, Sid. It now gives me great pleasure to speak about Bill Draimin of blessed memory, who served THMP since 1989, first as a director, and then since 1991 until his untimely passing in February 2019 as its president. Under Bill's presidency, THMP grew as a thriving enterprise where its Care and Maintenance Fund administers today approximately $25 million in trust funds, and where as an organization we carry out more than 800 burials a year. While he was president, he has not only led our growing organization, but he raised our profile in Ontario and beyond. He would provide legal services to the Ontario Association of Cemetery and Funeral Professionals for many years as its legal counsel. He would sit on what would become the OACFP's Government Relations Committee for many years. He sat as secretary and then chaired the Jewish Cemetery Association of North America, known as JCANA, and as the Jewish representative on the Bereavement Authority of Ontario's Faith-Based Advisory Committee. Bill was sought out by all these organizations for advice in establishing industry protocols and even legislation concerning the bereavement sector. People often ask why Bill carried on in this role for so many years. The simple answer is that besides his law practice and his family, this organization became his life's mission. It is only fitting that we dedicate this Assembly Hall in the new Sidney and Don Freedman Memorial Center as the William and Judy Draimin Assembly Hall. The family has asked that Paul Yanover, our Secretary-Treasurer and family friend, to convey their remarks and thanks to THMP and the community. And I therefore now call upon Paul Yanover.
I've been asked and honored to make a few remarks from by the Draimin family in honor of William. On behalf of our family, we would like to thank you for honoring our parents. Our dad believed strongly in community and found passion in this work. For over 30 years, he developed an expertise that helped to shape this organization and beyond. He took great pride in collaborating, contributing, and learning from many of you here today. To many, he was a true mentor who took the time to discuss, troubleshoot, and listen to the issues that were so important to the bereaved. He took this very seriously. Our mom, too, is a great mentor. She has stood with her family, and we're grateful to her for supporting us each and every day. Our dad's grandchildren, children, and wife continue to miss him dearly. May his memory continue to give you strength and wisdom as you move forward as an organization, and may his memory be a blessing to all that had the honor of knowing. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us up north this morning. And it's indeed a historical, I think, and welcomed moment for those of us who have worked so hard on this project, and we can't forget those that aren't here today, including Lou and Paul, who have given of their time to create this beautiful structure. I thought a short prayer might be in order. God bless this beautiful building and those who enter its doors. For now, you have chosen this location to be a place of comfort and consolation to the Jewish community of Greater Toronto. Help us to open our eyes and enable our ears to hear, understand, and fulfill the wishes and desires of those we serve. With that, say Amen. Amen.
And now for the formal dedication. On behalf of the Board of Directors of THMP and the community, I hereby proclaim the formal dedication of the Sidney and Don Freedman Memorial Center and the William and Judy Draimin Assembly Hall. This now concludes our dedication ceremony and this program. I would like to thank everyone who participated and viewed the ceremony by live stream. And I extend best wishes to all for a new year filled with good health and happiness. Stay well. Thank you.